Okay, today I'm going to tie for us a Barr's Visadun. This is a fly from John Barr that he came up with, gosh, a long time ago. That is sort of his go-to mayfly adult pattern. And I'm going to tie it in a blue-winged olive color today, but don't let that limit you. You can tie it in all sorts of different colors to match different bugs as you see fit. So just vary the color of really just the color of the dubbing and the thread. Everything else stays pretty consistent, but a simple little bug and a pretty good floater. Kind of a nice alternative to a parachute. If you're just looking for another thing to tie, here's one of them. So I'm going to start with the Tiemco 101, and this is a size 16 just for camera use. It makes it a little bigger, easier for you to see, but 16 through 22 is typically where this is tied. And I've got some gray 14-aught Veevus here in my bobbin. And I'm going to start this thread here, just 75% point or so on the hook. And I'm going to wrap back to the bend. And when I get there, just let my thread hang even with the point on the barb. I'll turn my vise a little bit, and then I'll spin that bobbin. And what I want to do is cord that thread up for a pretty good length there. And I'm going to use that corded thread to make a little nub back here at the bend. And you don't want to overdo this. One of the things I see very commonly when people tie this fly is they make that nub way too big. So see how that is in relation to the hook shank. It's not that big. And then I'll let my thread hang and unwind in the meantime, because this is where we're going to tie in our tail. And we're just using that little nub to kind of help spread the tail out. So for the tail, what we're going to use is some Spade Hackle fibers from a, you can use CDL if you can find the dang stuff these days, or just a spade feather from the side of from a dry fly cape. But what I want to do is pull out a clump of fibers, and I've got, probably 8 or 10 fibers here. I'm going to pull those out so that they're at a right angle and their tips are even, and I'll peel them off the feather. So I've got a nice little bunch like so. Give you a little better view there. Those are fairly dark. And my thread is flattened out here. So what I'll do is I'll unwind a turn and then wind it back on so that it lays flat. And I'll tie this tail in. I want it about a shank length long, just in front of that nub. And then as I wrap back over it, you can see my thread will spread that tail out. Give you a little better view there. I want that tail to spread out. You can kind of help it along a bit. And then I'll come forward over those butt ends up to just past halfway, and I'll trim those out. So what we've got is that splayed tail, like so. So now I'm going to take some superfine dubbing, and again, whatever color you want to tie. I'm going to dub a skinny little abdomen here. And I'm using gray olive here, which is a really good blue-winged olive color. Had I been thinking, since I was going to tie a size 16, I probably should have tied this in PMD, so it'd be a little more usable, but at any rate. So I'm going to start this dubbing right back here at the base of the tail. And I like to keep the body skinny on these. Real mayflies are pretty slender little bugs. And I'll dub just up to about the 60% point, and I'll kind of work back and forth to kind of finish out my taper there. And then I'll continue the thread base all the way up to the hook eye and back again. Now at this point we're going to tie the wing in, and typically John ties the wing in a solid clump. This is you can use either McFlylon polypropylene yarn or braided macrame yarn. This is braided macrame yarn, and this has sort of become my material of choice. But what typically John does with this is he'll tie this in and then stand it up. What I'm going to do, and it just makes for less bulk on the hook, is I'm going to take about half that much material. It kind of makes a little heavier wing, makes the fly a little easier to see. And I'm going to tie it in just in front of that abdomen, across the hook at an angle there. And then I'll come in and basically make spinner wings here. A couple of turns, so that I've got 2 spent wings tied in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand this up, and I'm going to take the thread in front and back So you can see I'm coming over the hook, under the hook, in front, and just kind of propping that wing up. But that leaves me with two wings that sort of stand up a bit. So rather than one solid wing, you can, if you need to, take a little wrap around the base to kind of pinch those a little closer together, but I like them to be sort of separated. John's idea was to sort of have just a fan wing there, but I find this method gives me less bulk on the hook, which is sort of what I like for this kind of fly. So now I'm going to take a dun colored, in this case I'm going to use a saddle feather. Neck feather would work just fine. And I'm going to leave myself some bare stem here. And I'm going to tie this in just in front of the body. I'll slide the wings back and bind down over that, so you can see what we've got there. And now I'm going to take a little bit more dubbing, and I'm going to dub this thorax. So what I'll do here, and you saw how little dubbing it took to build that abdomen, so it's not going to take much to build this thorax. And I really like to keep this thin. That just gives me the opportunity to kind of build the shape of the thorax that I am after here. You can see if I pull that wing up and kind of roll it in my fingers, it'll stay together. It just makes it a little easier to work around. And I'm going to continue this dubbing. I can even come back a little bit. Continue this dubbing right up to the base of the wing. Thickest spot's going to be at the wing. And then right up to the hook eye. Then I'll come back again and jam that right up against the front edge of the wing. And then just a couple turns on either side to use up that last bit of dubbing. Catch that one strand of poly for the wing there, and then I'll run out of dubbing just behind the hook eye. So really, very similar to what you do with an RS2 there. But now we've got our hackle feather tied in back here. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to palmer this. Now you don't want to make tight concentric turns. You want to palmer this feather. So I'm going to space these wraps out. I'm going to get 2 or 3 behind the wing, and 1 or 2 in front. Usually 2 in front. Yep. Looking pretty good there. And then I'll tie that hackle feather off. Trim that stem out. Now I'm going to make just a couple of turns to cover that stem, and I'm going to dub the head. This is sort of John's take on an old thorax style pattern, so it does have a dubbed head. So just a tiny little bit of dubbing here, that same dubbing. I'm going to slide that hackle back. I'm going to build this dubbed head just in front of that hackle collar. And I don't want to catch too much of that hackle. I just want to finish that off, about like so. One there I don't like, just to round off that head. And I'll come in and whip finish just behind the eye. Trim that feather out. Now what I'll do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to trim my wing just longer than the hackle on top. Just square across. Let it kind of fan out. Looks like I missed one over there. And you can leave the fly as is, or you can come in and trim a little V in the bottom. And what I'll do there, I'm going to take the fly out of my vise here. I'll turn the fly upside down, and what I want to do is just come in and cut a very narrow notch across the bottom of the fly. And because your hackle is directional, you've got to make maybe a few more cuts on one side than you did on the other, so that you can get sort of this V. Get you squared up there. Get that just set right just on my finger there. That V, so the fly sits down a little lower on the water, and you can see it's got 2 nice little wings, which I'm sure makes all the difference. I bet I catch a lot more fish because of that. And John comes in and puts a little, he actually does it before the hackler's wrap, but you could put a little shot of flexible cement, or really any cement you've got, right there at the base of the wing. Let that kind of bleed through the thorax. Got a couple here that I want to get rid of, but that's a pretty elegant little fly that's pretty darn simple, especially for a small dry. But pretty imitative, matches up to a lot of different bugs. And like I say, it's very visible in the water with that double wing. With the straight fan wing, everything was kind of bled together on the original, but I like that those two wings separated a bit. Just a little easier method of doing it. But cool little fly from John Barr, like every other fly he ties. That guy's probably got as good a set of fly designs as anybody on Earth. So when John says he likes it, I usually listen. But this is a cool little bug. You should twist them up, tie some PMDs. I've had good luck with this fly in PMD hatches, especially fishing from the boat. It's a fly that doesn't require a lot of maintenance. PMDs, blueing olives, you can tie it in red quills and mahoganies, and it actually lends itself really well for those bigger bugs. So even as big as a green drake, basically tied the same thing here. Maybe put a brown floss rib through that abdomen, and you've got a green drake pattern if you tie it in a bigger size. So versatility. That's a cool little fly. John Barr's Viz-A-Dun. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll tie some more. Come back and see me. Take care.